Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Movies with Matt, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Real Talk podcast. Personally, I think the podcast is actually kind of mid. I think Matthew was the best part of it. Josh was okay, but then he got turned into Nathan for some reason. Yeah, it was kind of okay.
Nev, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm reviewing the podcast.
You're reviewing the podcast that we review movies on.
Yeah, why not?
Look, Nev, I know you're upset that Movies with Matt got canceled,
Okay.
but this is fucking ridiculous.
Dude, I'm trying to get our views up. This is the only way to do it.
Whatever makes you happy, man.
As I was saying, the Real Talk podcast, it's kind of okay. Nathan's the worst part of it, and I personally give it a 4 out of 10.
Welcome back to the Real Talk Podcast, episode 82. Woo! And on today's episode, we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're not going to be talking about a movie. We're going to be talking about film critics and kind of a little bit of history of, how the medium of critiquing films has changed and kind of discussing if it's for the better or for the worst.
Yeah, I would say so. I love reading critic reviews. I love reading like different opinions on different movies that I enjoy or I dislike. I think since I was a little kid, I grew up on the online, era of criticisms like AVGN, like James Rolfe, Nostalgia Critic, Doug Walker,
Nostalgia
Jeremy
Critics,
Johns,
man.
Chris Stuckman, and whatnot. And even when I disagreed with their opinions, I always felt like there was a sense of like passion from how they're describing these movies, whether it be very bombastic, very cartoony, or just all around. They're very meticulous with how they talk about each story and what they would have wanted to see. But even back then, back in the day, people would find out if a movie was good by two fellows by the names of Siskel and Ebert. They had a long-running show.
And literally started video reviews of films.
Yeah, they had their own TV program. They had their reviews on Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Tribune, I believe. That was what their newspaper articles were. People used to read newspapers
Back in the day.
to read like, hey, is this movie good? Let me read this paragraph long, I mean, people still do it online. They write up.
But I feel like in those days, like a Siskel and Ebert review or a review in a paper, like a big paper, right? Had a lot more influence on if the movie's gonna do well or not.
Absolutely. It's because of the fact that criticism was still a new thing back in the day. Like, there's a difference between like going out of a theater and being like, wow, that movie was shit.
Yeah.
All right, Nathan, let's get some drinks. Like after a movie, it's like, let's fucking forget this movie existed.
Yeah.
But when it came to reviews back in the day, it was very much sort of filtered because of the fact that you needed to have some type of journalism. You needed to have some type of experience in writing. Whereas now we have so much convenience and access to the internet that anybody could do it. I mean, I'm gonna ask this question later on in this episode, but I'm more referring to like Chris Stuckman, Jeremy Johns. They started out as just people filming in their rooms in a green screen.
Yeah.
But it's because of how enthusiastic they were that they were just as good as the reporters and critics back in the day. Just a little different. The medium was different.
Yeah, less formal, I guess.
Yeah.
I've always been, my favorite kind of criticism to read or watch is, critics that you really just see their love for movies, even when they're talking about a bad movie.
Yes.
That they still get excited about the good parts of it. There's always a highlight that they discuss, right? And I think Chris Stuckman is probably my favorite because he's really good at that. When I like watching his reviews of bad movies.
Yes.
To see what he takes from them and where he flips the positives. Because you could tell he just loves movies.
Oh, yeah. There's this one YouTube channel. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're called Red Letter Media. They're basically like Chris Stuckman, Jeremy Johns, Doug Walker. A lot of these YouTubers look up to them because they were kind of the ones that started it, which is kind of weird to think about because it's like their most famous video that broke them out was them shitting on the prequels.
Really?
Yeah, this was back when like I think it was 2005 or 2006, and that was still like a very new thing to do. Was like shit on the prequels and
And
stuff like
it
that.
was on YouTube, and that
Yep,
what like
millions of views.
Wow,
Yeah,
bro, these guys have been doing this since the early days of YouTube.
yeah,
Like, I respect the hell out of Chris Luckman and Jeremy Johns. Like,
yeah.
these guys are incredibly consistent,
Mm-hmm.
have stood the test of time, and just the sheer amount of volume. Like, these guys review so many films. Like,
Yeah.
the amount of hours it takes to watch all these films and develop, concise opinions on them. It's insanely impressive that they're still doing it consistently and always getting better and upping the value all these years later.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in too, because like the thing about like a lot of experienced critics over the years is like you do so much and you think to yourself, am I just on autopilot with some of these movies? And
Yeah.
it's like that's the worst nightmare that a lot of them have. And another thing that they get worried about, I would think, is not having a genuine reaction to it.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to get by. I too, like I'll be honest, I see some movies and I'm just like,
And you're just indifferent, right?
I can't get through this shit.
Or yeah, you're just like I don't. You're just like, or sometimes you'll see a movie that's like mid,
Yes.
and you'll just have no opinion on it. Like for me at least,
Yeah.
like sometimes some movies I'll be like, yeah, that was a movie, and I can't really critique what I liked or didn't like. So I really look up to them and are really impressed by the way that they always have, like, it's easy to have an opinion on a Star Wars movie,
Yes.
a big one where
Everyone
a
has an opinion
controversial
on Star Wars.
but it's some of these in between movies or some of these mid movies. It's hard to like generate an opinion on. Some of them I'm just like, whatever. Especially if it's bad, I'm just like, oh, like
Yeah.
hard to. I struggle to also like, look for the positives and the light in bad movies,
Yeah.
and that's something I want to get better at.
No, that's same with me too. Like I remember like looking back at some films that I just hated.
Yeah.
I hated them and I was like there's nothing good about these films. And then there's some films where I'm indifferent about and then I go back to them and I'm like, "Hey, this is actually good."
Yeah,
You kind of change your opinion over the years from it.
I feel like you kind of always had an eye for film, and you grew up like really loving film. I didn't. I was kind of like a video games kid,
Yeah.
and to your point, a lot of movies that I saw back when I was younger and I didn't like very much, when I came back with this like more, a film background, like a film knowledge and a more critical eye,
Yeah.
I could appreciate a lot of things about them, right? Because you start to kind of dive into these films more critically, like the way
Yeah.
they're shot, the way they're directed, the acting performances, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, it definitely gives me a different perspective. Like, we know how hard it is to make films. Like, even
Yeah.
the worst films are hard to make.
Yeah. It's a
So-
miracle that films get made.
Yeah, it's a miracle that any film ever gets made.
Yeah.
So I try to keep that in mind when critiquing films.
Looking back at it too, it's kind of like because we've made our fair share of short films as well.
Yeah.
Not to say it's comparable to the blockbusters that we
course.
watch.
Yeah.
But there is that sense of every movie, no matter what, needs to have good blocking.
Yeah.
You need to have a good script, and it doesn't matter if your budget's $10, $1,000, 50 million, whatever. We can relate to the fact that we can tell good blocking from bad blocking because we have some sort of experience. And that's another thing too, is like you watch a great film versus an okay film versus a bad film, and it's like, where do you stand on it?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you look at it? Like I'm gonna be honest, like 5 years ago I don't know as much film as I do now,
Yeah.
and I'm still learning.
That's another thing. We're like extremely young, right? So
Yeah.
it's like there's only so much time and so many movies. It's like eventually when we're older, like we'll have seen a lot of stuff. There's still a lot of stuff that we need to see.
Yeah.
Like a lot of stuff that I need to go back and see, 70 stuff, 80 stuff.
Yeah.
There's like the list of films that I want to watch is so long and will
Yeah.
take me years.
I try to be humble. I try to be respectful with criticism and also just filmmaking in general
Yeah.
because it is a tough thing. And yeah, there are filmmakers out there. I won't throw in names or critics or anything like that have egos.
Yeah.
But I always think about the quote that Akira Kurosawa made before like he passed away. And it was just like he got this lifetime achievement award from like Lucas and Spielberg. And like the first thing he says is like, yeah, I'm still learning about movies. The guy who's made so many classics in his lifetime is saying that. And
It's the beauty of it,
I just,
isn't it?
I felt something about that. I'm like, even the idols that you look up to, it's like, hey, we're just students.
Yeah, these true directors that stand the test of time have that mindset.
Yeah.
Spielberg, these guys
Yes.
truly feel like they're learning every time they do it.
Yeah.
And Coppola tried a different genre every time he made a fucking
Yes.
movie.
Oh yeah.
And for better or for worse, I'm sure, like, you throw yourself into a new genre, you learn so much.
Yeah. And another thing I learned from a lot of those directors too is they didn't just say watch movies. And that's an easy thing that people suffer from is, oh, all I got to do to make a movie is just watch a movie. It's a little more
Right.
than
Everybody
that.
wants to be Tarantino.
Exactly. Tarantino's really good at it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, he's the 0.01%. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, most people can't just watch movies and then
Yeah.
his brain is different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like you take inspiration from just the things that have happened in your life.
Yeah, 100%.
Every film that you make, whether you think it's conscious or unconscious thinking, is going to come from someplace in your heart. And you're just like, yeah, this is my film because this happened in my life, ... You know, I can't explain it any further than that. But psychologically speaking, if we're going to go into that, it is what it is.
Yeah, and you draw inspiration from other movies, right? And
Yeah.
nothing is truly original anymore. There's inspirations in anything, any new thing coming out, right?
That's fair. I do think there is that difference between paying homage and making original work from the influences.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying, but you worded it better. Yeah, there is a difference between like ripping something off and obviously having influences and making something original out of those influences.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And it gives me another perspective too of like, I read a lot of reviews nowadays and I watch a lot of videos talking about specific movies, and I get it. We live in that day and age where the thumbnail is the reason why you're going to get clicks.
Yep.
So I see something like the Mario movie.
Yeah.
It's actually really, really, really bad. And I'm like, all right, let me watch this. Let's see what the fuck this is all about. You know, I'm not that crazy over it. Or like Shazam 2. It's just like, oh my God, Shazam acts more childlike than Billy in this movie.
Right.
That means it's unwatchable. And I'm just thinking like, okay, what is a sporadic rant and what is legitimate criticism? Because there is that weird differentiation from like, that's a word.
That's a
a
new one.
word.
Add it to the fucking
Add it to the fucking list
Webster?
of made up words
You listening,
that I've said in
Webster?
the podcast. English 101. No, but like it's more like distinguishing the two because we live in that day and age where, you know, you have to say the most outlandish thing.
That's the problem, isn't it?
With
like
criticism.
Siskel and Ebert weren't like, yo, this one's gonna go viral. I'm gonna fucking
Yeah,
You
but
know what
they
I
but they
mean?
have also said odd opinions. Like, have you ever seen any Siskel and
Yeah,
Ebert?
for sure. They
Oh,
definitely have odd opinions,
dude.
and they've walked back a lot of stuff that they've said.
Sometimes they've kept their ground though. Like I remember watching the Silence of the Lambs review they did. Siskel fucking hated that movie.
Yeah,
He said it was too violent and encouraged like violence against women and stuff like that. And Ebert's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But he said it in a very professional way. Like these two, and then like I watched another review of like Home Alone 3. And Ebert's like, "This is the best Home Alone film." And Siskel's like, "What?" He's like, "I'm not even a fan of the first two, but are you serious?" And it's like, I always look back at those reviews and I'm like, oh man, I don't agree with either of them.
but I genuinely,
But I love watching them.
yeah, and I genuinely believe that they believe that.
Yeah.
And it's not like a lot of these YouTube guys, like, I feel like they have these outlandish opinions that they don't even really believe. They're just like going in on something to go
Yeah.
in on something. But Siskel and Ebert, when they had a weird take or something that I was like, what the fuck are they talking? Like,
Yeah.
I don't agree at all. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I felt like they believed it, and that's good enough for me. I
Yeah.
love hearing. I'm like, I don't feel like my opinion is right or wrong, right? It's
Yeah.
we're talking about movies here.
It's the passion that really comes through. And that's the thing I liked about talking about movies with you, Nathan, is that
Yeah.
you show that passion so much, especially like not even just from the Fast and Furious films, which I get. Like you have that deep nostalgia for it. And
Yeah.
although the first three
I get really excited.
Fast and Furious films aren't the best received critically, you gave the reason why you enjoy them in the first place and why the other ones after 3 kind of suck ass.
Yeah.
And even though they've been received better, I think Fast Five's like the best received one in the franchise. But you know, you have your reasons, and I respect the hell out of that. Not
Yeah.
a lot of people would just start shitting like, oh, they just started to get bad, and you're like, no, buddy.
No, Fast Five is a great action movie.
Yeah,
I didn't want that franchise to be an action movie.
yeah,
I didn't want it to be an action franchise, right? It's a great action movie. I'm not a huge fan of just action movies. Like I've never been a huge fan of like Mission Impossibles, those kind of films.
yeah.
They're just really it's really not my genre. So yeah, I like the first three, grounded, right? But um the point is you were talking about passion and
Yes.
yeah, my favorite kind of critics are critics that are super passionate. Like
Yeah.
I mean AVGN.
Yeah,
Like
James Rolfe.
He doesn't James Rolfe. He doesn't really do movie. He does do movie reviews.
Yeah, James Rolfe does. AVGN obviously does video games.
AVGN, but AVGN obviously is hammed up.
Yeah.
But the passion that he talks about those video games with,
Yeah.
I always drew to that, right? And even James Rolfe when he does his like Cinemassacre stuff, it's
Oh,
amazing.
it's so good.
He has real passion when talking about these movies.
He got me into Godzilla.
Yeah, me too. He
Godzilla
got me
film.
into monster movies.
Monster movies, man.
He loves that shit, like Dracula. Like I would
Yeah.
have never watched any of that stuff if it wasn't for James Rolfe. He was definitely my biggest influence when I was younger, and in the first like 2 years of me getting into film, James Rolfe played a huge part in it.
Yeah.
And it kind of happened by accident. Like I said, I was a video game kid, so I'm watching AVGN.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, he makes these other videos about movies.
Yeah.
And then I start watching these criticisms, and then all of a sudden I'm into film, and I credit James Rolfe hugely for making me into film and looking at film with a different eye.
Fucking A, man. I was the same way with him and Nostalgia Critic when I was a kid. I used to watch him all the time, shitting on movies, and I look back at it and I'm just like, man, I was such a kid watching these because like I don't feel as entertained watching Nostalgia Critic. Doug Walker, on the other hand, it's just Doug Walker. It's just him talking about movies, and I'm more mature. I'm a little older, so
Yeah.
I just feel like I relate to Doug Walker
Right.
talking about movies rather than Nostalgia Critic screaming in the camera for like 20 minutes. I
It's a
get
different
it.
type of entertainment.
I get
right?
it.
Yeah.
You got to make the skits in between the reviews, but I can live without that.
Yeah.
But that's another thing too. Is like a lot of these people, like, sure, not all their reviews are going to be amazing. You know how many fucking movies there are in the world? Like,
Yeah.
that's a fucking ton of work. You know,
Who's your go-to guy though? Like for example, a big movie comes out like Indiana Jones maybe.
Indiana Jones.
And you're like I don't know if I'm gonna go see this movie. Let me watch a review. Who's the guy you go to first?
That's the funny thing is that I don't really look at it that way. I look at reviews as more of an entertainment and me strengthening why I enjoy or why I hate a film.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I almost never will watch a review before I see a film.
Yeah.
Because like Jeremy Johns and Chris Stuckman, they do like these spoiler-free reviews, and you could watch any of their reviews for the most part, and not have seen the film, and still enjoy them, and not have it spoiled for you. But I always like to just watch a movie, form my opinion, and then hear a different one.
Yeah. I remember because going into a little bit of superhero talk, because I do have a hot take as well when it comes to movies within superhero movies, is Zack Snyder's films. BVS, Batman vs. Superman. I remember as a kid watching that, and I love it. I still love it. I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And the critics fucking demolished it. I saw the reviews before the movie, and I was heartbroken because I was like a little kid. I'm like, what the fuck? Is it really like the worst movie? And then I watched it. I'm like, I thought it was good. And then they did a review of the Justice League film, the theatrical cut. And they said, oh, it was way better than Batman vs. Superman. I'm like, better than that movie? So my 17-year-old dumbass was just like, holy shit, it must be amazing. And I watched it, and I was so fucking depressed. I think Josh has told this story millions of times on this podcast. And that's when I realized, like, I can't be doing that.
You want to stay away from reviews.
I gotta
and
just
you want to
stand
go
on-
in
Yeah.
with your opinions, your head. You
Yeah.
form your own opinion with it, right? Yeah. I don't like to be influenced by opinion before I see a film as well. I'm kind of like you, where I just want to watch them afterwards. If I love the film, I want to watch everybody review it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing too. I try to look for reviews that differ from mine. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's when it's like, okay, why do you dislike it? And then that's when you go into the arguments, and I'm just like, okay, I don't really agree with that. I think this is why strengthens it and whatnot. And it kind of just builds your opinion even more.
Yeah.
And makes you explain why you enjoy the film better. I'm sure you've seen more than enough reviews of the Batman to be
for
like,
sure.
yeah, this is my favorite.
Yeah.
And here's why.
And even like films that I love, I love watching video essays about.
Yeah.
Like there's some great video essays on the Batman that I've watched. Like I've watched hours of content on the Batman on YouTube, and it's kind of the beauty of the era that we're in. There's so much out there, right?
Yeah. I love video essays. I love specific
retrospectives, video essays. That's my like wind down time. If I'm about to go to sleep, throw on a video essay. Like that's my shit.
Yeah. I look at video essays that are more optimistic towards films because of the fact that I don't know, when you watch so much negative shit on the internet, you get tired yourself.
Oh yeah.
It's like you're burnt out and you're just like I'm not gonna say the YouTuber's name because I don't really like their content, but it's more of like 5 hours of shitting on The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
5 hours
so
of
many.
shitting on Rise of Skywalker. I'm
Yeah.
like, look, I get it. People don't like these films. But if you're spending like more than an hour and 2 hours watching these fucking reviews, you need to touch some grass. I don't
Bro,
know, man.
there
You-
is-
you got to go outside.
There is criticisms, video essay criticisms of Star Wars films that are longer than the fucking films that they're criticizing.
Yeah.
It's for real. There is. There's
is.
Rise of Skywalker critiques that are longer than Rise of Skywalker. How do you have more shit to say than the movie did?
I don't know. I don't fucking
I feel
know.
like that's just being angry for angry's sake.
Exactly.
And just finding every little thing to be upset about. I'm not a big fan of that either.
No, I mean we've hated our fair share of movies. We've
Oh,
hated
yeah.
trailers and you know whatnot.
Yeah.
But I could not have the energy to spend like how long do we usually shit on movies for? Not that long.
Yeah.
There's a certain point where we shit on it for so long where we're just like, okay, there's got to be positives, Nathan.
Yeah.
Like, let's look for the positives now because I feel like shit.
Yeah, there's always a performance we can
Yeah.
take out of a bad movie or a score or
Yeah.
something, right?
Or something searching for a better movie out of it
Yeah.
because of the fact that the crew and cast, they're not like bad filmmakers all the
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
So we look at every perspective. We try to be honest with every episode that we have done so far.
Yeah.
And I think we have for the most part. We've been very genuine with how we've thrown out like different ideas for different movies and whatnot. And
Yeah, I know you and Josh did a lot of bad fucking movies.
holy fuck, man.
So far, so good for the Real Talk
Yeah.
podcast right now because we've been doing pretty good movies.
Yeah, we're on a good streak.
Like for the most part, I don't come in here just shitting on a movie. Like we're usually talking Creed 3, like
Creed 3 was good. Mario was good.
Mario. Like we're on a good run right now.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna do Indiana Jones. That might end our run.
Fuck, man. You want to talk about that film? We won't get into the popular movie topics,
Right.
But more.
So we've talked about video critiques.
Yes.
Siskel and Ebert obviously pioneering that genre, and now Chris Stuckman, Jeremy Johns kind of carrying that.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the new internet era of like Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb?
Ooh, Rotten Tomatoes,
What
IMDb.
is your opinion on that? Do you think that because to me, I feel like that holds the most weight now. Like that is the equivalent to like we were talking about how back in the day a Siskel and Ebert review
Yeah.
was like very crucial to a film's success, right?
Thumbs up or thumbs down, man?
Exactly. The thumbs up and thumbs down was everything. It's
Yes.
making or breaking the box office for the next month,
Yeah.
right? I think Rotten Tomatoes is like that's the first thing you see when a movie comes out. Tomato reviews,
Yeah.
fucking 55%. You're like, ugh.
Yeah. But you know, the audience score is always going to be high. And that's a discussion I want to go into right
Yeah.
now is the critic score versus the audience
Yeah,
score.
that's a good
that's
discussion.
been a fucking thing. I think it's been even more apparent when The Rock talked about it for Black Adam. He's like, I know Black Adam, it's got a low rating, but 85% audience score. Woo, baby.
All right.
And it's like, do you know how audience score works? Here's a fun fact. Between critic and audience, critic, you have to be a verified critic.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be part of some journalist company. You have to be part of something.
Right.
Chris Stuckman is part of the critic reviews.
Yeah.
He even has a Rotten Tomatoes account, and you can see his opinions and how they differ from the average rating. With audience score, It could literally be anyone.
And people troll. People tank audience scores.
It could be bots.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And same with IMDb. IMDb spams the shit. There was a screenshot of Suicide Squad in 2016. It had a 9.1 out of 10.
Wow.
My brother in Christ. Look at what the score is now on Suicide Squad, the 2016 one. And that's what I
Yeah.
mean. Could it have been the fan base that spammed it when it first opened? The answer is fucking A.
Yeah, no shit. And
And
that's how it's going to be, especially with
has a-
superhero
has a
shit.
5
Shit with
point-
fandom.
Yeah.
Like, obviously.
5.9 out of 10.
5.9 out of 10?
It went from a 9.1 when it first opened to a 5.9. But that's what I mean. And then it differs from what was it? Captain Marvel, the fucking 26%.
26% with
Yeah.
a 58%
Well,
audience
but
score.
58's higher. That
Yeah.
means it's right. But like Captain Marvel or like a bunch of those films, I'm not saying they're amazing, but man, did they get 1 stars. They got millions of 1 stars from people that didn't see the fucking movie. They saw the trailer, they hated it. So my opinion is, if I had to choose what's the most accurate critic rating, stick to Metacritic.
Metacritic. They
Even-
usually.
Even then, but Metacritic
Yeah.
at least like double checks people and they're like, wait. We're not looking at audience score. We're looking at pretty legitimate
Yeah.
so
I mean, I've always been more of a fan of like, video reviews. Like, I don't like chalking up a film to just a percentage. And just going with that. Like,
yeah.
it's not really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like to get deeper into it, but
But they're all accumulating critic reviews. It's not
Yeah.
one person. So
Right.
look at it that way. For example, the Suicide Squad has a 26, but click on the 26. This is another thing that people forget is that there's actually it's a 4.8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
That's how negative the film is. It's not 26, it's 49.
Mm-hmm.
People need to realize that there's different negativities.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's called an algorithm. Everything's an algorithm nowadays, so we got to look at it that
So
way.
where do you think film criticism goes from here? Does it stay as a video medium? You think that's kind of how it's gonna always be?
I hope if
now
it
on?
becomes like that, I hope we take some time with reviews and not use 10-second boom, boom, done,
Yeah, that's the thing, because everything is going into short content.
Yeah.
Attention spans are lower than they've ever been, right?
Yeah.
And I hope that doesn't reflect in the film review.
No.
Because movies, there's a lot to say about movies, man.
And don't get me wrong, we've done it. We've done the TikTok format, but those aren't reviews.
Yeah.
It's just discussions. It's little snippets of a discussion that lasts about 30 minutes.
yeah, and how many times is 30 minutes not enough for us?
Exactly.
Where Christian's like,
Christian's like,
buddy, one more fucking minute, and I'm just like, yeah, I love Creed 3. It's amazing.
Christian's like, Nathan, Matt, I'm gonna kill you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what I mean? Like we can talk about these topics forever, but at its core, a 10-second snippet isn't going to reflect everything on the
And
episode.
do you think another last question?
Yes.
Do you think in the future, film critics will become less and less relevant to how a movie performs? Like we've already seen the drop from like Siskel
Yeah.
and Ebert days to now, but do you think it just becomes less and less and less? Like Rotten Tomato scores start mattering less, and
I don't think so. I think there's always going to be a sense of people wondering what others think.
yeah,
And the superiority behind it. It's like when you look at people who do stand up and you look at I could do that. It's like, all right, try then. And then you bomb on stage and you're like, oh wow, it's a lot harder than I thought. I think that's for film criticism too. People act like they can talk about a film, like they could talk about 5 films every day. It's like, no, you can't.
yeah,
No, you fucking can't.
yeah.
It's not for everyone.
And film criticism is an art just as making films is. It really
Yeah.
is. It's hard to do,
Yep.
and we're getting better at it every day.
I'm hoping.
I'm hoping.
Let's hope for the best.
I'm hoping. We'll end it off on that. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Real Talk Podcast. Let us know what you thought about this episode, switching it up, talking about something different. Leave us a like, subscribe to your boys, and don't forget to take care and keep your hair brushed.
Peace out, y'all.